G'day mate and welcome to Capital Industry with me, Jet8. Today I want to go over probably my most complicated production and blueprint that I've ever built inside Capital Industry, and of course that is food processing. Now I've built many complicated blueprints, don't get me wrong. I've got a wonderful blueprint for oil, which is a modular factory. It's a modular factory as in it comes like a whole bunch of blueprints, Lego pieces, and then you can snap it together. You start off with your basic oil, and then as you upgrade the technology, you can then strap on the next section of the blueprint, the next section of the blueprint, till you end up with a full oil refinery after you've unlocked all the technology. Now, don't get me wrong, oil is very complicated. Well, in saying that, oil is actually probably not that complicated. It's only two resources in. It's oil and water, and there's a total of 11 different products out. So it's definitely a resource where you take in just a few items and you get potentially a lot of different items out. So it's probably not that complicated after all. I have built another modular blueprint for something a little bit more complicated. I have another one for nuclear. Now, nuclear, of course, it has all three pieces, being, one for standard fuel, and then extension that you add onto it when you upgrade to MOX fuel. So then you can start processing MOX fuel, and then, of course, the extension that you can plug onto that again to then start producing the fuel for the fast breeding reactor. But at the end of the day, nuclear only has 9 products in and 8 products out. Food is very different. Food requires 11 products in and 17 products out. Also, at the same time, I decided to include medical 1 to 3, which has another 9 products in and, just 3 products out. So today, we're going to go through how to build this blueprint and why it's not quite as modular as the previous ones were, along with how exactly it works, what sort of safeguards are built into it, all that sort of stuff. First things first, food can be very simple. If you choose to, say, have all your potato farms in a row and just feed potato to the people, you can then have maybe a bit of overflow. And that little overflow can go into something like snacks or maybe animal feed, whatever it happens to be. But I've never designed my food processing like that. I've always designed it with the thought process of, I just want to build farms. I want to build farms and I just want to tile their output into, the food processing plant. I don't want to care what crops I have to plant with what other crops. I really don't want to have to worry what line ties into what line. I don't want to make sure that I only plant potatoes alongside my corn because the two are processed together. I just want to have my farms and I just want to send them off to the great processing plant and have it just deal with everything. So if I happen to need some more potatoes, some more corn, some more whatever it is, I just plant some more down. I just want a system that works and doesn't back up. So that is exactly what I've designed. To design this, I had to come up with a couple of new sub-designs, so a couple of little specializations that we needed. First off, I want to have an 8-lane belt balancer, which I've built right here. I've already published some 8-lane belt balancers, but this one's a little bit different in that it takes in the 8 lines and then raises them up. That gives me a little bit more room to do a few more things. One of the few more things I need to do is, after I have 8 lines of, sushi food, then I need to filter them off. So I have this 8-lane filter system here, which will filter off any single item you want and then route it down underneath. I also have the exact same 4 flatbeds for both our fruit and veggies, and this is very similar. It takes all, in this case, only 4 items, 4 flatbeds, filters them and brings them out to, this filter here, this balancer here, where I can pull them out and send them off to the food processor, or I can take them out the other side and send them off to waste, because there are going to be some waste items we need to deal with. But first thing is, I need to have a feeding system. So this is my simulated feeding system with a whole lot of food, more than the colony could ever eat, and we need to grab our blueprints. We have our very first one being tofu and cooking oil. So we need to dump that into position and we need to get that built. Now, the very first thing we're going to have to do is bring in a couple of extra items. So we need to bring in water, also limestone, sulfur, salt, and plastic. They all need to come in at the same time. We can start, our sushi belt's running. I'm going to only start with soybeans for right now because we're going to, if I feed in everything, I'll end up with problems very quickly. But we are going to put in our flat belts. Our flat belts are carrying both our fruit and our veggies, and we're going to hit our very first filter. Our very first filter for, this particular one is bringing off the veggies. The veggies are going to come out and they're going to go into the vegetable box. Now, once the vegetable box is full, it's designed to automatically run over and end up back onto the belts to make sure the belts don't stop flowing. Because the moment they've actually stopped flowing, because we have fruit and the fruit has nowhere to go because the belts don't go any further. But the idea is that in theory, this would keep running forever and we just keep adding well, would add the next module on. But at the same time, we're going to get a couple alerts. One is going to be we don't have enough veggies, and that is because this is below 3/4 full. If it's below 3/4 full, obviously I probably need more veggies to feed the people. Also going to get another alert for tofu because, well, there's no tofu. So that's going to be our first, well, that's going to be our veggie side handled, and the flat belt's handled for quite some time. Next thing's not till fruit. Fruit's not for a while. But in the meantime, I have soybeans. Soybeans are coming in, and soybeans turn into a couple of things. The first thing, the most important thing they turn into is tofu, because we need to feed the people tofu, mainly for that small unity bonus that we get. But soybeans also have a couple of options. They can also be turned to animal feed, which we'll look at doing in the future. Also, they can get turned to cooking oil, but they're not going to get turned into cooking oil as long as you have canola. As I don't have canola currently, and I have more room for more soybeans to come in, we're going to pause this to simulate it being full, being therefore backed up, and then we can see this kick in action. So what's going to happen next is the soybeans are going to get kicked over, and they're going to be sent over to, well, the cooking oil section. The cooking oil section is designed to have canola come in first. Unfortunately, I don't have any canola yet. And then the excess soybeans are going to get sent over here. Now, once this backs up, it is full. We can see they are now being sent back onto the main bus, where they can be dealt with via alternative means. We're going to get to the alternative means in the future, but for the moment, as long as there's more room for more soybeans to come in, more soybeans will keep coming in, and we will keep producing, well, more tofu. Now, a couple of things I do need to mention along the way is that very first waste product. We're going to get some animal feed out. Animal feed has its own dedicated belt for waste products, which they're going to go onto, along with when we're also making cookie oil. Again, we get waste products being animal feed that has a dedicated belt. But one thing I haven't done is I haven't got canola in yet, so I need to find the canola belt and plug you in there. Cool. So this is stage one. Now, you may ask, what happens, Jetty, if I want to have more, well, more tofu, or I want to have more cooking oil? The good news is the blueprints, they're very, very modular. And in the case of I want more tofu, well, there's a blueprint to add more tofu. And you can add an awful lot more tofu. So we can throw a lot more tofu on there. Same time, if I want to have more cooking oil, that one there. And same story, we just dump this blueprint on the end and extend out the build as far as you need. As long as you don't go over a couple of 450 belts in, you're probably going to be fine. As I said, I've used this blueprint. Well, I have used this blueprint in some way, shape, or form very extensively from when early access first came out. It didn't quite work because there was a couple of items you couldn't recycle. You now can. And then when update 1 came out, well, I used a similar version of this blueprint. And of course, in update 2, well, I'm now publishing it for you guys. But what I want to do is, before I put down the next part, before we talk about the very next part, I want to ask a question, just a small question, a little question, and that is, well, you're still here, you're about halfway through the video. Can I borrow a like? I just like to borrow a like. I like to borrow a like reasonably early in the video. That is, I just like to borrow it. If you didn't find the video worthwhile, you didn't find it interesting, you didn't want to find out more about this blueprint, by all means, you can have your like back. With a couple of items down, I need to look at my next item. My next item is going to be booze and corn. So we're going to throw a booze and corn on next. And this is going to handle a couple of extra items. First item it's going to be handling is sugarcane, also corn, and, well, actually sugarcane, corn. They're actually the only two. So I need to come back to my start. I need to find sugarcane, which is this one. Yes. So I need to have that connect in, please. And I also need to find corn, which is, that's wheat, that's corn. Corn is that belt right there. Okay, can I add both those two belts? And then we get them running. And as you can see, the way the system works is it's generally moving everything to the right, but it's also running everything through the filter system. So we're definitely splitting everything up, separating it all out, moving it through. And in the meantime, we're filling up the soybean bucket. We're also filling up the cooking oil container and also filling up with canola. But next thing we're going to do is we're going to be pulling off sugarcane. Now, sugarcane is a bit of a special one. Sugarcane can only be processed into one single place, and that is into sugar. So all the sugarcane has to come off here. It cannot go anywhere else. It's very dangerous if it goes anywhere else into the system. So it doesn't have a way to get back onto the bus, whereas our soybean has a way to get back onto our sushi belts should it need to. Should everything back up, it can come back on here, and we have another process. We can deal with it later, but that's a later problem. Corn is going to be popped over here. You will get an alert if it's less than 75% full. Meanwhile, sugar is going to come over here, and we're going to start processing sugarcane with some water into sugar, and we're going to have output of biomass as a waste product. Biomass goes onto the same belt as the one that we had previously for animal feed. We'll cover that in a little bit later. Also, sugar is going to pop out and it's going to be sent in two different directions. One is onto the main bus that we will talk about later, and when we actually need sugar. The other place it's going to pop over to is over to ethanol. Now, ethanol, be bringing in sugar as the primary recipe, add in some oxygen. Oxygen is produced locally, and that's going to give us some ethanol, also some carbon dioxide we'll have to dispose of. At the same time, you will also be able to use corn to make corn mash with some byproducts, being animal feed, to also supplement your ethanol. The idea is this ethanol tank should be very, very full at all times. Currently, it's not full because I have no way of disposing with the CO2. We're going to get to that as we continue building our blueprint, but this is where we stand so far. There are a couple of extra alerts built in. One of them is in canola, because if canola gets to over 75% full, you have a problem because it cannot be filtered back onto this system. So it will start blocking up belts and stopping the actual sushi belt running. At the same time, sugarcane also falls in that category where it cannot let the main system back up. And that's one of the big problems. You cannot let the main system back up. In the case of like corn, for argument's sake, if that was full and that was full, well, corn can then come out much like the soybean has already and get dumped back onto this main system, where we have a other solution for it in the future. But for right now, I need to get the next blueprint in, which is actually, no, there's one side blueprint I need to do, which is biodiesel. Biodiesel is an extra blueprint that is optional, and it's really designed for, well, a backup situation. So cooking oil, which is the output from our canola, only has a couple of places it can go to. It can go off to make cakes. We'll get to that eventually. Also, it can go off to make snackaroos. They're very, very important. But we can actually mix cooking oil with ethanol to get diesel. Diesel is nice. It's always nice to have more diesel, but also it's very nice that the system doesn't back up. So this is an optional blueprint that if you end up with too much cooking oil, you can dump down. The pipe's already there. It's just a case of build it, turn it on, and what's going to happen is if the cooking oil fills up, so i.e. this pipe is running over, the priority splitter, can I actually pause that really quickly? Maybe that's enough to force it over. No, because it's currently backed up on animal feed. That's fine. Oh no, there's some. The cooking oil will get forced out here. It's going to head over here. It's also going to meet up with some ethanol. The ethanol is pre-sorted to come out here at all times, and then you can take that cooking oil plus some ethanol and make some diesel. That diesel is going to pop out via the pipe and fill up the two tanks. One is going to go straight to a fuel station. The other one is going to go into somewhere where trucks will hopefully empty it. And then should the worst happen, should there be too much diesel and nobody using it because you moved everything across to hydrogen, well, then you're just going to turn a whole bunch of pollution. It's an option. It's always good to have an option. So that's how that one works. All right. We know we have a low supply of corn. All right, next part of the blueprint I need to put down is going to be snackaroos. It's very, very important to have snackaroos, and this is where we're also going to be pulling more items off the belt. This time around, it's going to be potatoes, so I need to find the potato belt and add one tile in there. So we can start having potatoes on this sushi belt as well, and they're going to move their way up here. You're full. Can I go to soybeans? And can I pause that belt? So we just have a constant 60 in per minute. All right, up here, we have potatoes. So potatoes are going to get filtered out of the system and they're going to be brought into here. Now, one thing I should mention very, very early in the start to hopefully alleviate some blockages is our original balance that we put down automatically moves everything to the right if possible. And then as we're feeding items back in the case of this, like soybeans, they feed back on the left-hand side. So it should hopefully keep things moving. I've done my best to sort of make this as, idiot-proof's not the right word, but this is the word I'm gonna go with, as possible. Make sure that lowest chance of break. All right, so we're going to, at this point, pull out our potatoes. Potatoes are gonna come over to this bucket. They're gonna go off and do things. At the same time, they're also gonna come out to this bucket, and we're gonna get an alert saying we don't have enough potatoes. Also, we're gonna have an alert that we don't have enough snackaroos. It sort of sucks if you don't have enough snackaroos. Snackaroos require us have corn or potatoes. They can use either. It's more efficient to use the corn recipe, so hence that is the priority. Also, it's going to need salt. If we remember all the way back here, we had a big bucket of salt. That's been feeding onto this system for quite some time, and we're going to start using some of that cooking oil. We're going to bring in a little bit of plastic, because it's good to have microplastics in your food, and that'll give us snackaroos. It's also going to give us a little bit of biomass that's going to go onto that rubbish belt that we will deal with eventually. But this gets us as far as Snackaroos. Again, next blueprint we need to put down is going to be bread and cake, because everybody likes a little bit of bread, a little bit of cake. So I need to dump that in, and it also means I need to go find the wheat belt, which is that one, and add that to the list as well. So now we've added wheat to the list, we should be able to see this one kick in action. So again, same story. It's going to bring out all the wheat. It's going to dump the wheat into the box. It's also going to give us finally somewhere for fruit to go. So the whole time we've been doing this, fruit's basically been stacking up on this belt with nowhere to go. Now it has somewhere to go. We can see that our mixed garbage belt of fruit and veggies are going to keep coming in. Veggies going to get sent over here. Fruit's going to get left on the belt and flowing forward, and then fruit will eventually come in here. Excess, because there's always going to be excess, especially when they start filling up. Excess fruit and also excess veggies will get put back onto the system. Actually, that's some veggies right there. Put back onto this main bus system and keep heading forward. Meanwhile, with our wheat finally making its way up here, it's going to get filtered. It's going to come over here, and it's going to get turned into, well, the short list of things wheat can get turned into. Mainly flour. Obviously, it gets turned mainly into flour and some animal feed. So animal feed goes back onto our garbage belt, which is full of all sorts of garbage. Meanwhile, we're going to start making flour. Now, we're going to make 16 flour and 2 animal feed. 16 flour is a 1-to-1 to start making bread. But you might notice my flour splits here and goes other places, because we need flour for a couple of other items. One of the things, obviously, that takes flour is cake. So right behind this, we have cake. Cake is taking the flour plus some of the sugar that we made a long time ago. Plus, we bring in some of the cooking oil, and we need eggs. Eggs are not here yet because we haven't got the chickens. We'll get the chickens very, very soon, but also it needs some of that fruit. So this is why fruit is here. We can bring fruit out this way and make sure we have cake. And then, well, any excess fruit will go into the bucket, and then excess fruit will go back on the belts. We'll talk about that eventually. So this is our cake, this is our bread, but of course to make cake I need to have chicken, I need to have eggs, which therefore I need to make chickens. Eventually this belt will back up, and also the belt going that way carrying more flour will back up, and that's the point where we'll start getting a 1-to-1 ratio for our bread. At the moment I've intentionally built it this way so we don't have to calculate exactly how many mils we need to make flour. It should run perfectly fine to make bread, and also be able to siphon off the excess for other products. But like I said, the very next thing is I need eggs, which means I need chicken. The problem is, before I need chicken, I need to have meat. So, next blueprint is, we have an alert for that one, an alert for that one, an alert for that one, and a high alert for canola, which I've already paused the belt, haven't I? I have not. That was bad of me. Okay, pause that belt as well. All right, and yeah, now we can see a problem that, and I have a high belt for sugarcane. My problem is that nobody's actually eating this food. So things are going to back up. Yeah, I just need to keep placing the blueprint. With all that done, I need to put down the next blueprint. Next blueprint is going to be for chickens. Now, chickens is a little bit different. Up until now, every single blueprint can be expanded to the left. Chickens, not so much. Chickens, it's very hard to expand this to the left because these guys need to have 15 animal feed and 18 water, I want to call it. And there is 4, 8, 12 of them. So if we go 12 times 15 for the animal feed, that's 180 animal feed. That's an awful lot of animal feed. Sure, I could run a 450 belt, but it doesn't change the fact it's an awful lot. As for water, I think it's 18 by 12, which means I'm already over 200 pipes worth. This is being fed in with a 450 pipe, but also that 450 pipe starts back here, and we already have a lot of products that are already consuming some amount of water. So this is intentionally done as just 12 chicken farms. Now, if you want to have more chicken farms, that is an option. You can take the existing blueprint and dump it here and extend everything out. It works perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But for this demonstration, we're not going to do that. What we're going to be doing is we're going to add in the next blueprint, which is our waste processing. Waste processing is going to tag right on the end, and then we can get that part built. And I somehow misaligned the pipes by a couple of tiles. Can I get that to go into that one? Come on, plug in. And can I get that to go into there? Okay. Waste processing. All right, waste processing is going to do a few things. First thing it's going to do is it's going to bring in, well, any excess corn, any excess potatoes, any excess soybeans, and any excess wheat, and bring them over to these couple of mixes. These mixes are very, very important. Their only goal in life is to take the excess soybeans, the excess corn, and the excess wheat, and the excess potato, and turn them into animal feed. And as you can see, a mixer has, if I just copy one, well, 3 inputs at the back and one output at the front. What I've done is I've abused the fact that connectors have a vastly superior throughput, and I have, well, 4 belts feeding in to 3 connections here, and the connection out the front feeds straight into a connector. Also, it then feeds onto all 3 belts. So we have a situation where this can output to any 3 belts. Also, it can have input from any of the 4 different belts, and also means that, yes, even though we have, well, potentially 120 in, coming in, 96 out, 120 in, almost 200 out, 120 in, 150 out, 120 in, over 200 out, it means it should be able to fill over any of these belts reasonably well. That's going to bring out our animal feed. Animal feed is going to come over to these buckets, and therefore we can have animals, which means I need to have some chickens. Can I just add some chickens in here so they're seeded? They'll multiply over time, and that should let us start demonstrating, well, a few items further back that required eggs and also meat. Can I fill you and you and you? Okay, that should do that. All right, so that's what's going to happen there. Now, on our main system, it's going to continue to process, well, everything. So we're going to continue to have soybeans come in here. They're going to get used up. We're going to continue to have canola come in here, get used up. Sugarcane into here, so on and so forth. Corn into here, potatoes into here, and wheat into here. And obviously things are a little bit backed up because I have too much sugarcane because I haven't got rid of it fast enough. But with us now processing animal feed, it means I now have chickens. Chickens means I can now have eggs. Eggs are going to pass all the way back here. I'm going to start making cake. That is the only place eggs go. They go to, well, making cake. Technically food packs, but that is not covered as part of this blueprint because that's not something you can eat. That's something you can ship. At the same time, eggs are going to also pop over to an egg box, so we can hopefully get that alert to go away. And that's where we stand with, well, the very first one, the very first mixers that make animal feed. At the same time, our junk belt that had all that sort of stuff on it, is going to take off the animal feed and shove it into the animal feed boxes and leave the other items still on the belt, that being biomass and potentially meat trimmings. Which means it's going to get filtered again. Meat trim is going to get pulled off here. They're going to send to a different type of waste processing, and then the biomass heads out to the front. The biomass goes into these boilers. These boilers obviously take in some water, burn the biomass, make some steam, make some exhaust. The exhaust comes out here. You can optionally, it's not part of the blueprint, but you can optionally scrub that exhaust to get some low pressure steam, also clean up the atmosphere a little bit, also make a tiny bit of sulfur. The good news is you're about to need sulfur in about 20 seconds, and that steam, well, heads out this way. It heads out this way to a bunch of desals. We've all been through this process where you take in some steam, some seawater, you get some water, some brine. The water comes all the way back and heads into this balancer. This balancer is very, very important. It tells you the water from the desal is the priority in, and then it priority fills this tank. Make sure we have enough water to run these boilers because these boilers are going to be designed to get rid of waste products. Any excess water is going to get fed out to, well, this pipe and this pipe. This one is going to feed back into the bus where it's technically coming across here and being fed back into this system to make sure this system has enough water to get it started. We take the excess water from our desals because now we're actually creating water and feeding that all the way back to where it all started. So it comes back into this priority balancer at the start and makes sure the water is the priority in from our desal system. And on top of that has a separate water here which feeds back up one piece and into our chicken farms, because our chicken farms do consume a lot of water after they're full of chickens. If I just max you out, you can see we need 18.1 water, and that is an awful lot after you multiply that through 12 farms. But this is where the build stands so far. This is where we're up to, the aromatherapy digesters. The aromatherapy digesters also handle a couple of extra waste products. They handle any excess fruit, also any excess veggies. So once these boxes are full, the excess will get put back on the belt and be head up the belt and be eaten by the aromatherapy digesters. They're going to output fuel gas. Fuel gas is going to pop over here and be consumed again to give us some more high pressure steam and make us more water. They're going to make compost. Compost is very, very good for making excess dirt, or you just dump it in the sea as is. They'll also handle poppy and meat trimmings, because poppy we haven't actually got on the system yet, which probably means I need to come down here and add one more belt so I can get Poppy in. Now, Poppy is only used for medical, so I need to actually get the medical build built. So the next part of the blueprint, when we've moved outside food, is when we move into medical. Medical needs to dump right there. And with that built, well, we need to go through the next lot of inputs because we need to have another 9, I think it's 9 inputs to have this system running. So first input we're going to need is water. Well, we already have that up and running, so that's going to get tagged straight in. Also, at the same time, I need ethanol. Ethanol is going to come over here and mix in with plastic, which we already had. It's been traveling up the main bus the whole time. And that's going to give us disinfectant. With disinfectant and, well, more plastic and some steel. Steel comes in via the box in the trucks. We can start making some medical equipment. Medical equipment with some disinfectant is going to give us some medical supplies number 1. Now, to get from medical supplies number 1 to medical supplies 2, I need to have some antibiotics. Antibiotics require us to have sugar. Good news is we prepped that earlier and we happen to have sugar. Also, we need to have some oxygen. Oxygen we're going to make on site right here. We also need to have some ammonia. The thing is, ammonia you can get very easily by taking some hydrogen and some nitrogen and mix the two together to get ammonia. The good news is the air separator produces oxygen, which we need, also has a byproduct of some nitrogen. If I take that nitrogen and mix it with some hydrogen, I get the ammonia. To get some hydrogen, well, I'm just going to take some electrolyzers. I'm just going to have them split out water into oxygen and hydrogen to make the ammonia on site, to make the medical, to make the antibiotics, to make the medical too. So it's a very, very self-contained system. At the same time, it's going to have an output. The output is going to be CO2. Also, from a very, very long way away, not that pipe, that pipe, all the way back here, we had the ethanol production. The ethanol production also produced carbon dioxide. That's been waiting for you to put down all the blueprints to get all the way up here, where I'm assuming you're up to a stage, or at least you have the possibility of being up to the stage, where you can start turning carbon dioxide straight into graphite. So it's going to take any carbon dioxide it can get up here and turn this into graphite on site rather than waste it, because I do believe in recycling everything I can. If that is full for whatever reason, well, we have a good old smokestack to get rid of all the CO2 from this process, along with the antibiotics process, along with, is it that pipe? Is that pipe. Is that pipe, which is the CO2 from the boilers, the boilers running either fuel gas or ethanol. Should mention the ethanol because we have one pipe of ethanol that's popping over here to do medical. There's also a secondary pipe with of ethanol, which is an overflow. Because again, we can't let things back up in this system. So if I had too much sugar, which I have currently, so we can fix that by coming down here, getting the sugar blueprint and pop that there and that there and that there. And I will already admit that there's a fault in the blueprint that I am not fixing. And that is that there is one little belt there that it runs at a speed of 60. That is the only fault, I think. Yeah, every other belt is 200. Yeah, it's just one little piece that escapes me. So highly recommend that you upgrade that little guy right there. Okay, maybe there's 2 pieces. 200, 200, 200, 200. Yeah, there's 2 little pieces of 60 belt. If you get those upgraded, you should be fine. But that'll let us produce more sugar. Sugar will let us produce more ethanol. If I'm still short on ethanol, which I currently am, at least for this demonstration, same story. We have an expandable blueprint that I can just dump down and rapidly increase the amount of sugar I can consume and turn into ethanol, or, well, the amount of corn I can consume to turn into ethanol, because I need to have this tank full for the next part of our demonstration. But because things can't back up, the ethanol is actually taken over and consumed as well as fuel gas. Both are consumed to create more steam, to create more water. So again, back to our blueprints. After we have medical 2, well, the next stage is medical 3. Medical 3 requires us to have poppies. We have poppies being fed up to this bucket. They are the only item that is, well, not filtered, because at the moment, this time, our sushi belt has filtered every other single item that we've put onto the sushi belt has been filtered off the sushi belt. So the only thing left has to be Poppy. Poppy's going to pop over here, and Poppy's going to go into the bucket. It can then come over here, be mixed with some acid and some glass to make some morphine. Glass has to be delivered in. Also, some rock has to be delivered in. Rock is one of those things I'm pretty sure that you're going to have a decent supply of. But we also need to make medical 3. I also need to have anesthetics. Anesthetics come from ammonia, which we've already made as part of the previous process. And we also need some hydrogen fluoride, along with a touch of steel. Hydrogen fluoride obviously comes from us bringing in some sulfur and some water to make some acid, just the smallest amount. And if we take some rock, mix it with some acid, we get some hydrogen fluoride. It's very important to brush your teeth with some hydrogen fluoride. It'll make them very, very shiny because it has fluoride in it. And that's also going to output slag. Slag is one of the outputs of medical. Like I said, there's not many outputs. There's 3, I think. There is medical itself. There's the slag and the CO2. Medical is very simple compared to food. Food, we haven't covered everything, but we've covered most of it. And this will give us medical 3 because what we've produced all the items for, medical 1, medical 2, and medical 3 on site. It's going to give us a total of 96. 96 should be enough to run most colonies up to about 1,500 people or so. All right, back one more step. Poppy. If you end up filling up the bucket full of poppy, i.e. you have too much poppy, it then gets sent over here and also goes off to the aromatherapy digesters, where it'll get turned into more fuel gas. More fuel gas means more boilers. It means more clean water. So that is, well, one of the ways the system makes sure it doesn't back up. Now you're full. You're not quite full. Can I just top up all these guys? Because I need to see meat running. Once your chicken farms are full, they're going to need 15 animal feed in along with 18 water. The 18 water... the 15 food and the 18 water in is going to give you 7.3 eggs. 7.3 eggs is more than enough to feed a lot of colonies and also plenty to make a whole bunch of cakes. But it also is going to give you chicken carcasses. You're going to get a rate of 10 per minute. 10 per minute is, well, 40, 80, 120. Conveniently, you guys process 30. So that's 30, that's 60, that's 90, that's 120. It's all like I've done the maths beforehand, and I've made sure that you have the right amount. So these guys are going to take in the chicken carcasses, plus some water, plus some salt, make the meat, and the meat trimmings. Like I said, the meat trimmings are going to head over here and make sausages with the flour, and that should keep them running. But if, for say you end up with too much meat, i.e. the meat bucket was full, well, then these guys will, like I said, roll over the second recipe because they can't output the meat anymore, which means that eventually this backs up and they look for the next available recipe, which should be this. Come on. Now they're going to start output meat trimmings. They're going to output an awful lot of meat trimmings, and that's going to automatically come into this balancer. This balancer is going to make sure that the meat trimmings head over here, and you need 24 meat trimmings in. You're going to be making 27, so we're going to end up with a situation very, very quickly where the system's going to back up and it's going to overflow and I'm going to have too many meat trimmings. The good news is, at the end of the day, if you have too many meat trimmings, nothing goes wrong. Everything keeps working. It's not like the system backs up and things break. What it does mean is, well, potentially you could be doing something else with those meat trimmings. And that's where this balancer comes in. This balancer is going to make sure they go here first, but should this back up, are you going to back up for me or are you going to just keep running forever? I'm impatient. I'm going to pause you. Should this back up, the meat trimmings will pop out this way. Once they pop out this way, they will then leave on our great garbage belt. Our great garbage belt will take them all the way up here, where, like I said, they will get filtered off, and they get turned into fuel gas. Now, I do need to mention that the aromatherapy digesters are very, very slow. The idea is these are designed so things don't back up, things keep moving no matter what. But if I'm making 27 meat trimmings per one of those machines, and you have a burn rate of 4, that is very much problematic. So it's something you need to keep in mind, that an overflow is designed as an overflow. It's not designed as unlimited overflow. Yes, you do have more blueprints. So if I have too many waste items coming into the aromatherapy digesters, I can always have more digesters to have more aromatherapy. That is definitely an option. And again, these have multiple belts. We have 2 flat belts for both fruit and veggies. Also, we have a U-shaped belt for meat trimmings, and then a separate U-shaped belt for our poppy. So it definitely has a couple of ways we can fill up this belt and also fill up the aromatherapy digesters. They don't produce a lot of fuel gas, but I prefer not to waste something if I don't have to waste something, and that is what these guys exist for. Same goes for the mixers making the animal feed, because eventually your animal feed bucket will fill up. So if your animal feed bucket fills up, what happens to your animal feed? Well, the answer is it goes into this balancer and then heads out and goes onto this waste belt. This waste belt here that is also still handling the meat trimmings and the biomass, which will then head over there. How much? There's not that much room on the belt. Come on, back up already for me. Okay, with the belt finally backed up, we can see this is going to head over here, and Boilers can also burn animal feed. They can burn an awful lot of animal feed, 100 animal feed per minute, and there's 5 of them. So in theory, there's more than enough here to burn off a full belt's worth of animal feed constantly, which is then going to give us more steam from excess food. And that's really what the system is designed for. It's designed for to keep running no matter what, keep processing, keep doing things, and to never back up. And this whole time we have had, well, probably not a 260 belt worth of poppy coming in, because that's probably too much, but definitely a 260 belt worth of wheat coming in, not a problem. 60 belt worth of soybeans coming in, not a problem. 60 belt worth of sugarcane. The sugarcane warning's gone away, so that's not a problem. A 60 belt worth of canola coming in, not a problem. A 260 belt worth of potatoes coming in, and the same for corn, along with a 60 belt of both fruit and veggies. I'm assuming it's all muddled together intentionally, and the whole system's kept running without a problem. So this is how the system is designed. It's got a couple of safeguards in there, like we're full on cooking oil, which means we're producing a crap ton of diesel right now, and that has nowhere to go. So we make fire. We make fire to make sure the system doesn't back up. Yeah. Same with the sugarcane. We're producing a lot of sugarcane, and therefore a lot of sugar. A lot of sugar is going that way, and therefore we're producing a lot of ethanol. Ethanol is going into the tank currently, and it's being used in medical. It's also it's being used in, where are we? It's being used in medical currently, and it's also being siphoned off to make sure that the cooking oil doesn't back up. But that's pretty much all it's doing currently. If I didn't have too much cooking oil, i.e. I had a more reasonable amount of canola coming in, or maybe less machines at this point, well, then we'd have a situation where I'd have excess ethanol, and the excess ethanol would head up to the boilers to create some excess steam to make sure that system runs as well. But this is the full food blueprint. It is available on my Discord server if you're interested. It's also available on the Capital Industry Hub, which I'll link, I don't know, down in the description. I'll link both of them down in the description. At the same time, I will link my previous blueprints, the ones we mentioned earlier, being both the nuclear processing area and also the oil blueprint, if you're curious in either of those. Also, I'll link the videos, so you can go check them out beforehand. But what I want to do is I want to leave this video here. I want to leave this with, this is the most complicated blueprint I've ever built. People are going to ask me one last question, and that is, how big is the damn blueprint? And my answer is it's massive. I'm going to work on these size squares for a change, because, well, it's 11 of those deep. The deepest actually being the chicken farms, and it's 27 of them long. It is a very large blueprint. There is definitely spots I could have saved spaces and trimmed it down by not a whole lot, but definitely a little bit. But I intentionally chose not to make sure it was easy, it was readable, it was understandable, and more importantly, I could cut it up into smaller sections to make sure I could publish it as some individual modules. But with all that said and done, I'm going to leave this particular video here. As always, I do hope you guys have enjoyed. I do hope that like that I asked whether I could borrow, I get to keep it. And I do hope that maybe you have a look at this blueprint, maybe you learn something along the way, because like I said, this is the most complicated thing that I've built inside Capital Industry. There is, I don't know, 11 different types of food coming in, plus we have these 5 items here, plus we have a whole bunch of items up here coming in to produce medical, or so many different outputs. It is really something that has been a challenge to put together. But like I said, I leave this video here. As always, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you in the very next video. All right, bye.